Hello everybody. Good evening, welcome. There we go. Hello, good to see everybody. Welcome. Uh-oh, I may need to sneeze at some point. I apologize. I'm gonna apologize ahead of time. Hello, welcome everybody. Ooh, we got a lot to go through tonight. Oh, we've got a lot going on. But hello, welcome in everyone. Let me do a little highlighting real quick. We've got Miss Hicks as our featured program for tonight. Oh my goodness gracious. Let me see here. I need to adjust my papers. There we go. This is what we have already read. This is what is still needing to be read here. So we'll just make sure we've got hello. Oh my goodness, everyone. Yes. Oh my goodness. We had a lot going on. So I came on just a little bit early to make sure everyone was able to get their notifications before I started tonight. And I did have a couple quick things I wanted to go through. That is my cat singing in the background, in case you're wondering what that was. Hello everybody. Hello. We had a lot going on today, everyone. We really did. So I thought, let me go ahead and just break it down, share a couple of things. Well, before I get started here, since I'm on just a little bit earlier. Good evening. Hello. So by the way, everyone, in case you hadn't heard, we do have a lawsuit that has been filed by TikTok and ByteDance Limited against the Attorney General. This is with regards to the most recent passing of the law there in Congress. So just so you know, this was filed just today, and it's out of the District of Columbia Circuit. So I thought it was very interesting. Of course, I don't have time to go through this, but because there's a lot going on. How was guitar time? It was excellent. And I'm glad I went because it's raining pretty hard tonight. So I'm glad I was able to go last night. So I just wanted to give everyone a heads up here. We do have a lawsuit that has been filed. So of course, we're in the very beginning steps of all of this. Yes, what's my initial thoughts? I think it's an excellent point. I think they're arguing First Amendment issues, and I think that's exactly what the issue is huge First Amendment issues, and this would set really incredibly dangerous precedent to go forward the way it is. So I think they did a pretty good job. I think they set it out really well. So I will be doing a post kind of summarizing this to kind of explain how it goes, but I was able to print it out, and I thought I would just make sure everyone had a heads up that we do have this going on right now. So yes, they filed lots of suits and they've won them. They've won them all. So far, this may be the one they don't win, but we shall see. That First Amendment, so pesky. Such a pesky thing, the First Amendment. We shall see how it goes. So we do have that. I thought that was very interesting. And then, of course, everyone, we have the Stormy Daniels testimony today. That was quite the to-do. I did not do a final post because I felt the last post that I did of today really, I think, is how I felt at the end of the day. It was a lot, everyone. Her testimony was a lot. The Mitt Romney, yes. Well, he's kind of been all over the place, and then in the end, as he stepped away, it's fascinating. It's fascinating to see what could have happened if enough people had kind of stood up to the bully here. So I thought that was it'll be very interesting to see how we recover from this that we have gotten ourselves into. So, yes, I will. I will be reading the transcript. I'm on just a little bit early tonight, just to chit chat for a few minutes, make sure everybody has their notifications. But I will be continuing on the Hope Hicks transcripts. I've got about, I'll wait probably about 10 minutes here before I start reading, just to give everyone a chance to come in for tonight. So I will be reading the rest of the transcripts. Can't leave that hanging. Gotta go down that road. So I should be able to finish Miss Hicks's testimony tonight. We'll go through the direct, and then we will go through the cross. The cross was not very long, but we should have plenty of time to go through that tonight. So, but did want to kind of address the elephant in the room, so to speak. Is it an elephant? Is it still an elephant? I'm not sure. The Stormy Daniels testimony today, it was quite the thing. That really took up a lot of time. It took up a lot of energy, and it was difficult to read, to watch. I'm sorry, that's my cat again. Thoughts on Florida? Yes. So what are we thinking here? What? Come on now, hush, hush, hush. How are we? It's a bear. Today was crazy. It was quite the deal, indeed. So I am not surprised. I do have thoughts on Florida, everyone. So for anyone who is not aware, the Florida case, we had multiple filings. I knew there were several that were set to come down today. We had the SIR reply filed by Mr. Trump, along with an exhibit kind of supporting that SIR reply, which, I don't know about all that. But that was filed. And then we had the judge filed her order setting the second set of pretrial deadlines. So she set a new set of deadlines. And as I'd been saying before, we had no new order resetting the trial date as of yesterday. But today, this order that she has set out, it's very interesting what she's done here. She's really kind of, I don't know, I kind of get the sense that she's complaining a bit, which, whatever. But she has said she is vacating the May trial date. So she has officially said no May trial, which we've all been waiting for because we're in May. And so we've been waiting on that. And she is saying basically because of all the pretrial things that need to be taken care of, that she is not ready to actually set a trial date, which is interesting. I don't know. I'm wondering if she's... I'm wondering if there's actually a rule. I think you need to have a trial date actually on the calendar. So I'm not sure exactly how this is all coming together. So the speedy trial clock, I'm glad you asked. The speedy clock has been paused, and which is fine. And she has mentioned very clearly that the defendants have waived the speedy clock August 12th and through September 9th. Essentially, based off of their filings that they had on when they had preferred to have the trial go. So she's looking at it from that perspective, meaning she's feeling pretty comfortable about holding or waiving that speedy at this point for a little while. So yeah, she needs to be supervised better. Yeah. So she has reset basically everything that had been set before. She's reset all of the dates in through July. And so this is where she has said, well, we'll go ahead and take a look in July after this last SIPA hearing. And then at that point, I will go ahead and set a trial date. Now, I'm not 100% that that's, according to the rules, but she's a judge. She's in this area of Florida, so if she's filing this and this is somehow allowable by their rules, then so be it. I don't think my local rules would have allowed to just kind of leave a trial date hanging out there, but she's got her own way of dealing with this. But she is saying right here, time under the Speedy Trial Act is therefore told up to and including July 22nd to permit adequate time for hearings and adjudications. So she is pausing that speedy trial clock that they were running up against for that late July date. We had spoken about that before. So something Jack can get her removed for. Great question, James. And at any point, if we feel that there is significant harm being done here, if we feel that there's a a conflict going on or some kind of misservice of justice, we can file something against our judges. And I'm not sure that her setting out her trial like this, or not setting a trial date, would rise to that level. I'm not sure that we're at that point. But again, this is where our jurisdictions vary from place to place. In my state, something like this would not be allowable, but we're in federal court and we're also in Florida. So, she's been kind of dealing with this case a little bit different in a way that she feels is comfortable for her. This is unusual, in my opinion, to have this kind of a case set without some kind of a trial date, but so she's kind of leaving it open, but yet acknowledging the speedy trial dates. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on here. And I've looked at the local rules for Florida. Again, I've not seen any rules specifying that exact rule allowing for that, but we will see how the things are discussed over the next few days. I can only imagine the level of frustration to be in a trial of this magnitude and not have a trial date. But she has set out multiple months of when the hearings will be and when reports are due and so on. But, one thing is we've got trial dates, or we've got certain kinds of deadlines based off of the trial date. So we actually go backwards from the trial date on some of our motions. So if we don't have a trial date, we can't, really see when some of the motions will need to be filed, basically. So I don't know. It's a very unusual situation. Again, for her to just say, well, we just don't know when it's going to be, and not even, put something down, just put something down in the calendar, put it in December, do whatever. But for her to leave it open like this, very odd. I find that to be very unusual. So I'm not sure how this is going to play out. Again, I don't know if this is something that they just do in Florida in federal court there or what. I've not seen it before, so unusual or maybe annoying. Yes, I think so. Next motion needs to be. Well, that's a good question. That seems to be a question. But again, it's not as though we're stopped. We're clearly, the case is still moving along. In fact, there's a hearing tomorrow. So we have a hearing tomorrow, we have a hearing in 2 weeks, and we basically have a hearing and multiple things that are due every single week up until this date that she said. So there are things due, and it's actually a pretty significant schedule. It's not, just to give everyone a visual real quick while we're waiting for everyone to join before I start reading the transcripts. So we've got grand jury hearing, we've got 1 week off, and then we've got 2 due dates due. We have discovery due, and then it looks like we've got 1 week off there in June, and then we've got some more due dates as well. And then the week of the 4th is off, and then we've got some more hearings and due dates. So it's actually a pretty rigorous schedule that she has set out for the next couple of months. But again, I think it's odd to not have a trial date. So very, very, very odd in my opinion. But I don't know how that's going to go. Is it standard for Jack to respond to her postponement? I would say he can. I think we respond when we're frustrated. We need to clear up the record, and we need to say why this is or is not going to work. Why we would say, Your Honor, this is, completely outside of the realm of reality or something like that, to try to be pleasant about it. It's possible to respond, and it's possible for Trump to respond as well. So we shall see. I do plan to do, let me just give everybody a heads up. I do plan to do a full Florida update, going through in the entire docket again, just to keep everyone updated. And I will do kind of an abbreviated live going through that. And I'm not exactly sure when. I will announce that tomorrow, though, when I will do a live. But I do want to do a live just updating everyone on Florida. So tonight I just had a few minutes here before I get started going through the transcripts, but I think it's important to know where all of our cases are at here with Mr. Trump. So I will definitely do a post on when I will be doing an update on the Florida situation, and I'm hoping to do it tomorrow. I'm thinking actually even at noon tomorrow may work, or early afternoon. We'll have to see how my schedule goes. Luxury trip by Scalia. Well, who wasn't? Matt, Who wasn't, right? I know I got mine. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. Oh my goodness. Yes, yes. We've got some questions. We've got some questions that I think are fantastic that we're asking. I think we are asking all of the right questions for sure. So, well, welcome in everybody. I was just giving everyone time to come on in for tonight and saying hello, hello. We do have a new order out of Florida. I was expecting it to be coming down anytime. I will do a full live just going over the Florida case, and I will announce when I'm going to do that live tomorrow. So watch for that post. So with that, I did want to remind everybody we do have the TikTok lawsuit that was filed just today. Actually, I will be doing a post on that as well. And I think that's pretty much our updates. And of course, we had Miss Stormy Daniels, who was testifying today in court. We had a lot of questions raised by her testimony. Rumor has it she wasn't as probably as calm as she should have been on cross-examination, but cross-examination's hard. That's hard work, doing cross-examination and sitting through that. It's very difficult. So anytime you're going through cross-examination can be very difficult, especially when you are kind of going through and feeling like you are reliving something that's very unpleasant. So very difficult situation for her. I will be getting transcripts, and as soon as I can get them, I have not seen, they take about 24 hours to post, and then they only post at about an hour before I go live. So if I can get them printed out and annotated, I will do her testimony tomorrow. But if not, I will do Keith Davidson. I still do want to get pieces of his testimony in. I think that's very important to go through his testimony as well. So I will be continuing on. The only caveat that I put out, everyone, is that this is my third night in a row. So I may need to take tomorrow night off, depending on how my voice is after tonight's session here. And but I will let you know. I'll let you know if I will be back again tomorrow and what time. So I wish I could give you more notice other than that, but that's just kind of how my schedule is. So it just has to do with how I'm feeling. So with that, though, welcome on in, everybody. Good to see you all. Now, let's talk about Miss Hope Hicks. So Miss Hope Hicks, we did go through the first half of her testimony last night, and a very interesting testimony that she had for us. I thought interesting things that were shared. Tonight, I'm hoping to make it through the rest of the direct as well as the cross-examination. And that should not be a problem for us tonight. So that will be the goal once we get started here. So yeah, it's dark on Wednesday. I agree, VC, and it's nice actually to have that Wednesday because it gives us an extra day to kind of collate and get everything sorted out at this point. So thank you. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm happy to do it. I just wish I had a stronger voice for it. I had a vocal injury in college, and unfortunately it kind of can get triggered once in a while, so I do have to be a little bit careful. So here's another picture of Miss Hicks. Again, I'm not sure. Yikes, we've got quite the backstory here with Miss Hope. So we will see after going through the transcripts tonight. But I do plan to pick up pretty much where I left off last night in going through that. So all of the transcripts are available online for free on New York courts or nycourts.gov. You can pull them up. They're available along with all of the exhibits. I do plan to come back through at a different time and just go through the exhibits, which are very interesting. So we will do that at another time, but I will have those available for everyone. So with that, I will go ahead and get started just to make sure we can get through everything tonight. So let me just remind you, we had a page missing last night that just for some reason hadn't made it through my printer, and the page that was missing was 2186. So I had skipped through that in order to get us through to the break that the court had here. So they had a brief break shortly after that. So I did print that page out that was missing last night, and I'll go ahead and back us up one page just to remind everyone. So we'll pick that page up and then continue forward there. So yes, we've got the missing page. I know. We've got to make sure we've got everything. So we should have everything tonight. It should be pretty easy for us to make it through. So we will start again with the direct, which is in blue. So that is the government. And then orange, of course, is going to be the cross, which is the defense. So let me grab my tea real quick and then we will get started. Yes, we do have the TikTok lawsuit. I will be posting about that at some point very soon, but I do see it out there. The bond, great question. That is on my to-do list right now. There's just been so much going on, but my understanding is so long as he is giving her a monthly report on how that account with the money in it's going, they should be good to go. That's the last I've heard of it. What kind of tea? Well, tonight I'm just drinking a strawberry lemonade kind of tea. I know, it's like a lemonade. How is that a tea? But let me just show you here. This is what it is. I guess it's an infusion, maybe not a tea, but yes, orange blossom. So there we go. I will leave it in your capable hands, moderators, and go ahead and dive right in. So here we go. Can you tell the jury what this message shows? These are draft responses that I shared with Michael. And you sent this from your campaign email account to Mr. Cohen at the Trump Organization, is that right? Yes. And now let me direct your attention to the top of the page. Let's zoom in on Mr. Cohen's reply, whereupon an exhibit is shown on the screens. Can you go ahead and read what Mr. Cohen said in response? He suggested that say these accusations are completely untrue and just the latest despicable attempt by the liberal media and the Clinton machine to distract the public from the FBI's ongoing criminal investigation into Secretary Clinton and her closest associates. After sending this draft message to Mr. Cohen and getting his response, did you speak to him further about it? I don't remember, but I'm sure that we did speak. You mentioned after the rally you also spoke to Mr. Trump about the potential statement, is that right? Yes. Tell us about that conversation. He wanted to have an understanding of what was going on as well. I believe we called Mr. Pecker's office back. I was relaying that Mr. Pecker had said to me that this being, a legitimate contract for a woman that was going to provide them content, magazine content, and he wanted to hear that from David as well. And so I believe I have a recollection of us calling David repeating that to Mr. Trump. And sometime after that conversation, Mr. Trump he didn't want to use the statements that we had drafted. He wanted to draft his own statement. And so, in that conversation you just testified about, he wanted to hear what Mr. Pecker's statement to the Wall Street Journal would be? He wanted to have an understanding of what David had told me previously. Did that include what Mr. Pecker told you about what the explanation would be? It included his explanation for that this was a legitimate contract, and that's what they planned to tell the Journal. You and Mr. Trump then had input into the statement, is that right? Yes. Did he ask you to include anything in the comment to the reporter? I think we changed the statement not to include almost any of what you just saw, and it was just the denial and of the accusations and a statement that they were totally untrue and that we didn't know anything about this deal. Going back to the email you received from the Wall Street Journal reporter, did it mention any other women in addition to Karen McDougal? The story was also going to mention Stephanie Clifford, Stormy Daniels, one in the same. So you understand Stephanie Clifford and Stormy Daniels to be the same person? Yes. How did you come to learn that this story would also mention Stormy Daniels? The reporter told me on the phone. Did you then, after learning that Stormy Daniels would be in the story, did you have any discussions with Mr. Cohen about Stormy Daniels? I believe I did. Oh, thank you so much. I'm very fuzzy about this point, but I believe I spoke to him. Did you mention to Mr. Trump that Stormy Daniels would be mentioned in the story? Yes. What, if anything, did he say when you told him that Stormy Daniels would be mentioned in the Wall Street Journal story? He wanted to know the context. He wanted to make sure that there was a denial of any kind of relationship. And did you believe that denying the existence of a relationship was responsive to the reporting? I felt the point of the story was that the National Enquirer paid a woman for her story and never published it. It wasn't necessarily about accusations of, certain behavior. Is this a good time for a break? Yes, Your Honor. Let's take our lunch recess at this time. Jurors, I remind you, please do not talk amongst yourselves or anyone else about anything related to the case. Please continue to keep an open mind as to the defendant's guilt or innocence. Please do not form or express an opinion as to the defendant's guilt or innocence. And please remember all of the admonitions that I've given you. Enjoy your lunch. All rise. Whereupon the jurors and the alternate jurors are excused. You may be seated. Thank you, Ms. Hicks. You may step down. Whereupon the witness is excused. Is there anything that you would like to go over? No, Judge, thanks. Nothing for the people. Enjoy your lunch. Thank you. Whereupon a luncheon recess is taken. And this is where we left off yesterday, everyone. So I did include the missing page, so we have all of the information. Whereupon the case is recalled in the afternoon session. Continuing case on trial, People v. Donald J. Trump. All parties are present. Good afternoon. Should we bring the witness out? Yes, Your Honor. Okay, let's bring the witness out, please. Witness entering, whereupon the witness, Hope Hicks, having been previously duly sworn and or affirmed, resumes the witness stand and testifies as follows. Good afternoon, Miss Hicks. Remembers that you're still under oath. Let's get the jury, please. All rise. Jury entering. Whereupon the jurors and the alternate jurors are present and properly seated. Continuing case on trial, People v. Donald J. Trump. All parties and all jurors are present. Mr. Colangelo. Thank you, Your Honor. Direct examination is continued. Good afternoon, Miss Hicks. Before lunch, we were talking about an inquiry you got from Michael Rothfeld at the Wall Street Journal. Do you remember that discussion? Yes. And I believe we were discussing a request from Mr. Trump that you included the denial of any relationship with Stormy Daniels in your response to the Wall Street Journal. Do you remember that? With both the women who were mentioned in the story, yes. Thank you. Did you get back in touch with the reporter, Mr. Rothfeld, at that point to convey the denial of any relationship with Stormy Daniels? I did. Around this time on November 4th, did you witness any phone conversations between Mr. Trump and Mr. Cohen? I believe I heard Mr. Trump speaking with Mr. Cohen shortly after the story was published. Did you? In addition to the phone calls that I described earlier. Okay, thank you. And when you observed Mr. Trump and Mr. Cohen speaking after the story was published, did you participate in that conversation? No, we were in our car on our way to the rally venue. Tell the jury a little bit more about how that came to be. We landed after Ohio. We flew to, I think, Hershey, Pennsylvania. And so we were getting in cars at the airport to travel to the next event venue. And I don't know who initiated the phone call. I just remember Mr. Trump was speaking to Michael during that car ride. And Reince Priebus was also in the car. And did you hear either side of that conversation? I presumably heard Mr. Trump. There was nothing memorable. I don't remember anything that was said, so. And you said this was on after the plane had landed in Pennsylvania, after leaving the Ohio event where you had been earlier that day. Yes. Do you remember where you started the day that morning on November 4th? I want to say Maine. So was Ohio your first stop of the day or one of several stops? No, one of several stops. And earlier when you talked about a typical day for you, you mentioned that some days had multiple stops. Some days had fewer, is that right? Yes. Did your mornings depend on how many stops you had that day and where you needed to get to? Yeah. So if we had more stops, we typically left earlier in the day to account for additional travel and, maybe another rally, maybe another campaign stop of some kind. If we had to do like 2 or 3, which was pretty much the average, we might start a little later. So to get to the office around 7, but not leave for the airport until a little later that morning. Okay, so there were days you left early in the morning and days you wouldn't leave until mid-morning or later in the day.
Mid-morning, I would say, yeah.
That was throughout the fall of 2016.
Yeah, it's hard to generalize. Every day was different, but basically, yes.
Now, going back to your interactions with Mr. Rothfeld, did the Wall Street Journal later publish the story they contacted you about?
Yes.
Let's bring up People's 180 in evidence. We can display that for everyone. Do you have that on your screen?
Yes.
Is this the article that Michael Rothfeld contacted you about?
Yes.
So, this is the article reporting that AMI and David Pecker purchased the rights to a story from Karen McDougal but never published it?
Yes.
Did you read the Wall Street Journal story when it was first published?
Yes.
Around that time was the article published online?
Sometime in the evening, 6, 7, I can't say when.
Let me direct your attention to the middle of page 2 of this article. I'd like to highlight a response, starting with Hope Hicks, a campaign spokeswoman. Do you see that?
I see it.
Can you go ahead and read the highlighted passage into evidence, please, into the record?
Sure. It says, Hope Hicks, a Trump campaign spokeswoman, said of the agreement with Miss McDougal, quote, "We have no knowledge of any of this." And she said Miss McDougal's claim on the affair with Mr. Trump was totally untrue.
And that statement that you just read, does that accurately reflect the statement that you gave to the Wall Street Journal?
Yes.
Did Mr. Trump tell you to say, "We have no knowledge of any of this"?
I don't remember him, verbatim saying that, but that was the consensus of the conversations that we were all having, that the campaign wasn't aware of this agreement that AMI had with Miss McDougal. But my recollection is that this is what was told to me, and that's why it was provided as a statement.
Is it your recollection that this was told to you by Mr. Trump?
Certainly that any claims of an affair were totally untrue, yes. That's what was told to me. I don't have a strong memory of him saying verbatim, "We have no knowledge of any of this." So I just don't want to say that. I don't want to say that that's what he said because I don't remember.
Okay. Do you remember giving grand jury testimony as part of the district attorney's investigation in this proceeding?
Yes.
Would reviewing your grand jury testimony refresh your recollection as to what Mr. Trump told you to say in parts of that response?
Perhaps.
Can we show what's marked for identification, People's 509H, and display that just to the witness, the court and counsel? Page 685 from the part that, whereupon the aforementioned parties are shown that part of the exhibit. Take a look at that, Ms. Hicks, and let me know when you've had a chance to review it.
Yes, I see it.
And does that refresh your recollection as to the source of the information that you gave to the Wall Street Journal?
No. Like I said, the denial was from Mr. Trump for both women, and that's very clear. The part that I'm unsure about is that he said we have no knowledge of any of this directly. So and this doesn't clarify that for me.
Give me 1 second. Take a look at the last 3 lines on this page. Objection, Judge. Overruled. And let me know when you finish reading it.
I see what I said. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just telling you, as I sit here now, I don't have a strong memory of him saying to me, "Say we have no knowledge of any of this." I know very clearly that he stated the denials and wanted to be certain words were included. There were hectic conversations. There's a lot of people weighing in. I just want to say something definitively that I can't remember as I sit here today right now. Sorry.
We can take that down. Let's go back to People's 180, please. Can you display the middle of page 4? Let's blow up the passage. This can go to everybody. Do you see the passage that's being displayed?
Yes.
Does that read, Mr. Davidson also represented Stephanie Clifford, a former adult film star whose professional name is Stormy Daniels and who was in discussions with ABC's Good Morning America in recent months, publicly disclosing that what she said was a past relationship with Mr. Trump, according to the people familiar with the talks. Miss Clifford cut off the contact with the network without telling her story, and she didn't respond to requests for comment. An ABC spokesperson declined to comment on Miss McDougal or Miss Clifford. The Trump spokeswoman, Miss Hicks, said that it was absolutely unequivocally untrue about that Stormy Daniels had a relationship with Mr. Trump. Do you see that statement?
Yes.
Does it accurately reflect what you said to the Wall Street Journal?
Yes. And it also accurately reflects what I said to the grand jury. That's what I told to the Wall Street Journal. That's what was told to me.
Did Mr. Trump tell you to say to the Wall Street Journal that the relationship with Stormy Daniels was absolutely unequivocally untrue?
Yes. Yes.
Did you, after the story was published, were you in contact with Mr. Cohen about the story?
Yes.
And did you text each other about the story?
Yes.
Let's display People's 259, which is in evidence we can show everybody. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
What is it?
It's a catalog of text messages between myself and Michael Cohen during this time period.
Can you identify the dates that the text messages include?
November 4th and 5th of 2016.
Let me direct your attention to the first 3 text messages on the cell, whereupon an exhibit is shown on the screen. What do these messages show?
I'm sorry, these are from Michael to me?
Correct.
Yes.
Well, sorry.
I'm just making sure that's what it is.
Are they from Michael to you?
Yes.
And what do these messages show?
Michael asking me to call him. Michael asking for updates throughout the evening of the 4th.
Is that sometime between 7 and 9 p.m.?
Yes.
What did you understand him to be asking you about these texts?
I don't actually know because I believe the story had already been published by 8 o'clock. So I don't actually know. I presume just about if there was any pickup to the story, if there was any follow-up that he needed to be looped in on.
Let me address your attention to the next several texts on the page. Let's see if we can blow up the next 6. What does the first text in this chain show?
It shows me sending the story to Michael, which was at 9:55 p.m.
As you sit here today, do you have memory as to how close in time the story was published online? You sent a link to Mr. Cohen?
I don't. I'm sorry.
What was Mr. Cohen's response when you sent it to him?
He said, lots of innuendos with little fact.
Can you read the next message as well?
Poorly written, and I don't see it getting much play.
Did you understand him to mean I don't see it getting much play?
I did. Just a little irony there.
How did you respond?
I said, I agree with most of that, but that it will get play because the media is the worst. But he should just ignore and blow past it. And by he, I meant Mr. Trump.
And did the text exchange regarding the Wall Street Journal article continue the next morning?
Yes, it did.
Let's go ahead and display the last 2 messages. Can you describe for the jury what these messages show?
Michael saying that he's only seen 6 additional stories about the Wall Street Journal piece and that it was getting little to no traction and that he concurred.
How did you respond?
Yes, I responded.
I'm sorry, can you let me know how you responded?
Oh, I wrote same, that I was seeing the same.
Let's take a look at the next page and show the top 3 messages. Can you describe to the jury what this shows?
This is a text message from me to Michael asking him to keep praying because this was obviously the reason why there were only 6 stories. Sorry, everyone, I need a tea break. Prayers always make me need to have a tea break. Okay. And he wrote back saying that even CNN wasn't talking about it. No one believes it, and if necessary, I have a statement by Storm denying everything and contradicting the other porn star's statement. I wouldn't use it now or even discuss with him as no one is talking about this or cares. And I responded, agree.
Can you describe what you understood getting little to no traction to mean?
It wasn't being picked up in the same way as something like the Access Hollywood tape was. It wasn't wall-to-wall coverage.
And in the message in the middle of your screen right now, there's a note from Mr. Cohen stating he has a message from Storm.
I see it.
What do you understand that to mean?
I don't know.
Do you have any understanding at all?
I mean, I can guess, but when I say I don't know, I don't believe at the time I received that message that I had the necessary context to totally understand what he was talking about. But it wasn't, I just wanted to move to the next thing. It wasn't, obviously, I didn't follow up and say, wait, what are you talking about? What statement? I didn't know what he was talking about, and I didn't want to know. So I understand that I believe what I believe he's implying, which is that I had a statement from Stormy Daniels saying that there was no affair, therefore no story to shop.
And when you say you didn't know and you didn't want to know, what do you mean by that?
The election was taking place in 3 days, and we were doing 5 or 6 rallies a day. There was a lot going on, and it wasn't like this story was all consuming the news cycle and that I needed to be aware of every little detail. I just was kind of hoping at this point we were just going to blow past it and keep going.
Let's take that down and show the rest of the messages on the page. Miss Hicks, were you in touch with Mr. Cohen again later that day on November 5th?
Yes.
Can you describe the text exchange that follows?
I've texted Michael and asked him for David Pecker's cell phone number, and I said, I have it, but Mr. Trump thinks it's the wrong number. He sent me David's phone number, and I said, that's the same one that I have, thanks. And Michael reiterated he sent a different phone number and said, he called me from this phone number this morning, I believe, meaning Mr. Pecker. And I replied at some point and said that they had already spoken and that it was all good.
Why did you ask Mr. Cohen for David Pecker's phone number?
Mr. Trump wanted to speak to him.
When you say they spoke all good, what does that refer to?
They spoke. The all good means I don't need your help anymore. They spoke. It's all good.
Meaning Mr. Trump and Mr. Pecker?
Yes.
Were you present for the phone call between Mr. Trump and Mr. Pecker on the 5th?
I wasn't, no.
What was the response overall to the Wall Street Journal article?
It was sort of muted, all relative compared to some of the other stories. We dabbled during the campaign, but it didn't get a lot of traction.
After it was published and on November 5th, did you discuss the article with Mr. Trump?
I did.
What, if anything, did you discuss?
He was concerned about the story. He was concerned it would be viewed by his wife. And he wanted me to make sure that the newspapers weren't delivered to their residence that morning.
Did he also ask you whether you thought it was likely to affect the campaign?
Everything we talked about in the context of, this time period, and this time period was whether or not there was an impact on the campaign. So certainly I don't recall specifically him saying that, but everything was something that Mr. Trump said a lot is how is it playing? He wanted to know how things were playing, whether they were playing well or playing poorly. And that could have been a speech, an article, a tweet. So I don't want to speculate, but I'm almost certain he would have asked me, how's it playing? And wanted to know how I felt about the next few days, how I felt the next few days were going to go, and if this was going to be a big piece of the next few days.
After the election in November and before inauguration in January of 2016, did you have a role on the presidential transition?
I did.
What was that role?
I don't actually know. I think it was just an extension of what I was doing on the campaign.
And did you later join the Trump administration as a White House employee?
I did.
When did you start working in the White House?
January 20th of 2017.
How long did you work in the White House?
I worked there until April 1st of 2018. I left, and then I came back in March of 2020 and left in January of 2021.
In between April of 2018, when you left the White House the first time, and March of 2020, when you returned, where did you work?
I worked at the Fox Corporation.
What was your role at the Fox Corporation at the time period?
I was the Executive Vice President of Communications.
So, going back to your first period of White House employment, what was your position when you joined in January of 2017?
When I first joined, I was Director of Strategic Communications.
What were your responsibilities as Director of Strategic Communications?
Similar to the campaign, I worked closely with the communications team and the press team on message development and organizing events to help showcase Mr. Trump's accomplishments, the agenda of the administration. I worked closely with Mr. Trump on media opportunities for him. Yeah.
And in that role, did you speak regularly with Mr. Trump?
I did.
You mentioned that that was your first role in the White House. Did you later get another position in the White House in the first period of employment?
Yes, eventually I became the communications director.
And did your job change from director to strategic communications to communications director?
I think in August of 2017.
When you first started working in the White House in January, where was your desk located?
In the outer Oval Office, right outside the Oval.
Can you describe for the jury what the outer Oval office is?
Sure. It's like a reception area. There are 2 desks for 2 assistants. And then there's like a small vestibule that was a coat closet and had like a mini fridge and a coffee station in it. And yeah, that's the outer oval. It's very small space, very small.
And you mentioned there was another desk there. Who sat at the second desk when you first started working at the White House?
Madeline Westerhout.
Who's Madeline Westerhout?
Madeline was Mr. Trump's executive assistant once we got to the White House.
What were Madeline Westerhout's responsibilities when they started working there?
She just looked after Mr. Trump's needs, worked with various team members on his schedule, kept his call logs, took his messages, worked with him in correspondence. She is, a very good executive assistant.
I think I've asked you what your responsibilities were as a director of strategic communications. Can you describe what your job responsibilities were when you became the communications director?
Sure. So it changed just a little bit to, instead of working with the team, sort of overseeing the team and just coordinating all of the communication efforts for the administration from the White House throughout all of the agencies and making sure that each of the principals of the agencies and the agencies themselves were prioritizing Mr. Trump's agenda and that we were all working together to maximize the impact of any positive messages that we were trying to get out and share with the American people and, capitalize on any opportunities to showcase Mr. Trump and his work, the president, in a good light.
In that role as communications director, did you continue to speak regularly to Mr. Trump?
I did.
How often did you speak?
Every day.
Now, did there come a time during your White House employment that Karen McDougal's story resurfaced?
In January of 2018, there was a story in the Wall Street Journal, not so much about Karen McDougal, but it was about Stormy Daniels.
I'll ask you about that story in a second. Let me ask you first, were you aware that at some point while you were in the White House that Karen sued AMI to be released from her non-disclosure agreement?
Objection.
Overruled.
I recently had my memory refreshed about that.
So, are you aware that that happened?
Yes.
Do you know the date of that lawsuit?
I want to say March 20th,
Of what year?
2018.
I'm going to show I'll show the court and counsel a document that's been marked as People's 319. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
What is it?
It's a text message with myself and Madeline Westerhout.
Did your attorney produce this text exchange to a district attorney's office in response to a subpoena?
Yes.
Is this the exact copy of the text messages that you sent and received?
Yes.
I offer People's 319 into evidence. No objection. Accepted into evidence, whereupon the exhibit is received in evidence. Let's display 319 for everyone, please. Can you let the jury know what it says?
It says Madeline.
And what initials does it show?
MW.
I think you testified that those are text with Madeline Westerhout, yes?
Yes.
Let's scroll down to the bottom of the text message, please, just to the last message showing the date. What is the date in this next text message?
Tuesday, March 20th, 2018.
And is this a message from Miss Westerhout to you?
Yes.
What does the message say?
It says, hey, the president wants to know if you called David Pecker again.
I think you testified that March 20th was the same day that Karen McDougal sued American media regarding her NDA agreement.
Yes.
Did you speak to Mr. Pecker that day?
I have no recollection of speaking to David.
You have no memory of that one way or the other?
I don't. I don't believe I called him, but I don't know. I don't have a memory of it.
So are you saying it didn't happen, or you don't know one way or the other? Objection. Overruled.
I don't know one way.
And shortly after that, shortly after the filing of the lawsuit, did Miss McDougal give an interview to Anderson Cooper?
Yes.
Do you remember when she gave that interview?
March 24th?
So it was
March 22nd?
sometime not long after the exchange we just described.
Yes.
Within a couple of days?
Seems like it, yeah.
Were you aware of the interview when it happened?
Yes.
Did you watch the interview?
Yes.
After Miss McDougal went on Anderson Cooper, did you have any discussions with Mr. Trump and David Pecker about that interview or about the AMI deal?
I have no recollection of speaking to Mr. Pecker after that interview.
Okay. I'll ask the same question I asked before. Are you saying you don't know one way or the other whether it happened?
I don't believe that it happened.
So your testimony is you didn't speak to them after the interview?
To my knowledge, I did not speak to Mr. Pecker. To be clear, I did speak to Mr. Trump. I was the communications director. This was a major interview. Yes, we just spoke about the news coverage of the interview, how it was playing out. But I don't recall him mentioning Mr. Pecker in those conversations or having a conversation with Mr. Pecker.
And when did you testified that you left the White House after the initial period of, when was that relative to the events I just described?
5 days later.
Did there come a time during your White House employment that the Stormy Daniels story resurfaced?
Yes.
When was that?
January 12th of 2018.
Describe how you learned that story was coming back.
I can't remember exactly, but someone, either myself or another press communications team member, got an inquiry from the same reporter, Michael Rothfeld of the Wall Street Journal, describing a story they planned to publish that, Stormy Daniels, who was a footnote in November 4th story from the previous year, had in fact received a payment of $130,000.
So you had first heard about it before the story was posted, and later the article was published, right?
Yes.
When you first heard about it, did you speak to Michael Cohen about the girls from the Wall Street Journal?
I can't remember.
You have no recollection of it, especially with Mr. Cohen at all?
Sitting here right now, no. But if you have anything to refresh my memory...
Let's show the document just to counsel, the court, and the witness that I previously marked for identification as 509H. Go ahead and review that and let me know when you're finished.
So this helped, thank you.
Please go ahead and let me know.
Sorry, when you were asking the question, I was thinking sequentially, like right when the story came out. I think the 12th was a Friday night. I'm not positive, maybe Thursday or Friday night, and I don't remember speaking to Michael right then. But at some point in the aftermath of that story, I spoke to him. I spoke to him about it, and I do remember that.
What do you remember about that conversation?
I remember Michael just saying that this wasn't true and that no payment had been made and that he had a statement from Stormy Daniels, either personally or her attorney, stating that no relationship had transpired.
And
that he had documentation to prove that no payment had been made.
I think you testified a minute ago that you also discussed this story with Mr. Trump, is that right?
Yes.
And what did you discuss with Mr. Trump?
Just how to respond to the story, how he would like a team to respond to the story.
Did you relate to him the substance of the conversation you had with Mr. Cohen?
I don't recall the sequencing, and I believe I spoke to Mr. Cohen after I spoke to Mr. Trump.
Let's bring up People's 181 into evidence. Is this the article we were just discussing?
Yes.
Let me direct your attention to the second page of the article. Let's look at the third paragraph, please.
I see it.
Can you go ahead and read that third paragraph, please?
It says, these are old recycled reports which were published and strongly denied prior to the election. A White House official said, responding to the allegations of sexual encounter involving Mr. Trump and Ms. Clifford, the official declined to respond to the questions about an agreement with Ms. Clifford. It isn't known whether Mr. Trump was aware of any agreement or payment involving her.
Dear. There are certain words I will try not to say, everyone. I apologize. Are you the White House official quoted in the story?
No, I'm not.
Who was the White House official quoted in the story?
I can't say for sure. I can't say for sure, but I think that it was Hogan Gidley. He was the deputy press secretary.
And as the communications director at the time, withdrawn, did you discuss the statement with Mr. Trump before it was issued?
Yes.
To your knowledge, did Mr. Trump communicate directly with Mr. Cohen about these reports that Stormy Daniels was paid $130,000 a month before the election to stay silent about her allegations?
I only know of one instance where they communicated directly with one another, but I can't say about the other than that.
And for the one instance that you know of, when did that conversation take place?
Sometime in the middle of February.
How did you learn about it?
Mr. Trump told me about it.
And can you describe the conversation that you had with him about the conversation he had with Mr. Cohen?
I believe it was the morning after Michael had given a statement to the New York Times saying that he had in fact made this payment without Mr. Trump's knowledge. And so Mr. Trump was saying that he had spoken to Michael. This President Trump was saying he spoke to Michael and that Michael had paid this woman to protect him from a false allegation. And that, Michael felt like it was his job to protect him, and that's what he was doing. And he did it out of the kindness of his own heart. He never told anybody about it, and he was continuing to try to protect him up until the point where he felt he had to state what was true.
And this is what President Trump told you Michael Cohen said to him?
That's right.
How long had you known Michael Cohen by this point?
3.5 years.
And did the idea that Mr. Cohen would have made a $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels out of the kindness of his heart, was that consistent with your interactions with him up to that point? Objection. Overruled.
I would say that would be out of character for Michael.
Why would it be out of character for Michael? Objection. Overruled.
I didn't know Michael to be a especially charitable person or a selfless person. He's the kind of person who seeks credit.
Did Mr. Trump say anything else about this issue when he told you that Michael made the payment?
Just that he thought it was generous, thing to do, and he was appreciative of the loyalty. That's all I remember.
Did he say anything about the timing of the news reporting regarding?
Yes. He wanted to know how it was playing and just my thoughts and opinion about this story versus having the story, a different kind of story before the campaign, had Michael not made the payment. And I thought Mr. Trump's opinion was it was better to be dealing with it now and that it would have been bad to have that story come out before the election.
Thank you. No further questions. Your witness.
Thank you. May I inquire?
You may. Now, before we move on to cross-examination, everyone, let's pause for a moment. That is the end of direct, just so we know. That was some pretty damaging testimony, in my opinion. Yeah, that was some pretty damaging testimony there about Michael Cohen. I would agree. Oh, my goodness. Level the voices. Oh, thanks. There are people in my home who have voted for the voices. So I do it for them. Oh, my goodness. Yes, I will be looking for the Stormy transcripts. The last paragraph, yeah, definitely got it. Definitely got it. All right. So let's dive in, everybody. We are on cross-examination. Again, orange is defense and purple is Ms. Hicks. So we do not have very many pages of cross before we end her testimony here. So we shouldn't have any problem finishing this tonight. Yes, that reminds me, everyone, if you are watching this, there is another creator on here called The Captain. Oh my gosh, everyone. He has been live streaming the trial and he does an amazing job. He's got multiple pages going up along with reading what's happening minute by minute. If you're interested in following what's actually happening in real time, highly recommend going and checking him out. We have been friends for a long time, and I've just got nothing but respect. He is amazing. He does a great job, and his take on this entire situation is just excellent. So I just wanted to remember to give him a shout out today. Because I thought he just does a great job. And again, with the technology, here I am with my paper and pen, but he's got all the screens up and running, so he does an amazing job. Highly recommend for anyone who is interested. All right, you watch him every... Okay, yes. So he is here on the TikTok. He just does a great job. All right, everyone, here we go. Let's dive in. Your witness? Thank you. May I inquire? You may. Ms. Hicks, I want to start by talking a little bit about your time at the Trump Organization, if that's okay. Nods yes. I think you said you started around October of 2014. Nods yes. Yes. Sorry, it's okay. And your initial title was the Director of Communications? Yes. And that was hold on, I got the puzzle piece, everyone. Hold on, yikes. So stressful, so stressful to verify that I'm live right now. Okay, here we go, backing it up. Sorry, it's okay. And your initial title was the Director of Communications? Yes. And that was a position that the Trump Organization created to bring you in, right? Yes. And I think you said this morning that you focused on real estate, hospitality, and entertainment. That was your portfolio there, right? Yes. Boo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Boo-hoo-hoo. Sorry. Boo-hoo-hoo. Can I have just a minute? Of course. Sorry. Judge, may we take a break? Miss Hicks, do you need a break? Yes, please. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. Jurors, let's take a few minutes. All rise, whereupon the jurors and the alternate jurors are excused. You can step down, whereupon the witness is excused. Sorry, everyone. I have a really hard time actually voicing her crying. Here we go. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. She's all sad. She's all feeling sad. All right. Remain seated. Let's get Miss Hicks back, please. Witness entering. Whereupon the witness, Hope Hicks, having been previously duly sworn and or affirmed, resumes the witness stand and testifies as follows. I can't. Yes, boo-hoo, boo-hoo. Sorry, everybody. All right, here we go. All right, so let me make sure. 23. Oh. Sorry, everybody. I'm missing half of a page here, but that's all right. We'll bump back up. Early on in your time at the Trump Organization, correct? Yes. And you felt that you had his trust and respect. His trust and respect, yes. You met some of his staff, his other staff, right? Yes. Including Rona Graff, you mentioned? Yes. And I think you said this morning that your perception of the relationship was one of mutual respect between President Trump and Ms. Graff. Absolutely. She had a pretty big job there too, right? Yes, I really looked up to Rona. And you said this morning she was crucial? Yes, she was, yes. And she had people helping her, staff of her own in a way, right? Yes, she did. And that included Meredith McIver? Yes. Miss McIver was one of the President Trump's ghostwriters? That's true. Did the Trump Organization have a legal department? Yes. And Al Garton was there when you were there? Yes. You had plenty of interactions with him? Yes. And Jason Greenblatt? Yes. You mentioned interacting with Mr. Cohen pre-campaign of the Trump org this morning? Yes. And tell me if I'm wrong, it sounds like those interactions were pretty minimal. Yes. I think you mentioned a little bit of the assistance with the licensing aspects of the hotel deal.
I think that was my only experience working with him, unrelated to his interest in the political operation. And so let's talk a little bit about the campaign. Okay, your title was press secretary, right? Yes. And it sounded like your duties and responsibilities morphed onto the new job in a way that sort of carried out on what you were doing for President Trump at Trump.org. A little bit, just in a little different context. Not only real estate and hotels, similar tactics, more politics, less hotels. Yes, but still interacting with the press. Yes. Helping to put together statements, correct? Yes. And let's focus on the time period 2015 to 2016 for a little bit. Mr. Cohen wasn't a part of the campaign, right? No, he would try to insert himself at certain moments, but he wasn't supposed to be on the campaign in any official capacity. There were some things he did in a voluntary capacity because of his interest. He would sometimes appear on TV. I think he put together a coalition, a diversity coalition at one point. No, he wasn't looped in the day-to-day of the campaign strategy staff, the plans. Nope. The campaign had separate counsel, separate lawyers. Yes. And that included Don McGahn. Yes. And you mentioned that Mr. Cohen had some of the statements and did some TV appearances during the campaign, right? Yes. And am I correct that he was instructed to focus on President Trump's business credentials, right? Yes. And even in connection with the authorization, he was speaking as a campaign surrogate, not as part of the campaign, correct? That's right. He was speaking as an employee of the Trump Organization that had experience working with Mr. Trump. Right. In 2015 and 2016, that's where he still worked. Yes. And there were times when he did things that, in a sense, that were frustrating to campaign staff, right? Yes. Things that were unauthorized by the campaign, right? Yes. He went rogue at times, fair to say? Yes. There were times when Mr. Cohen did things that you felt were not helpful to what you were trying to accomplish, right? Yes, I used to say that he liked to call himself a fixer, Mr. Fix-It. And it was only because he first broke it that he was able to come and fix it. That's hilarious. Oh my gosh, that was funny. Right, and he was really just a lawyer, right? Yes. A lawyer at Trump.org, right? At Trump.org, right? Yes. And you were asked some questions both this morning and this afternoon about David Pecker, right? Yes. And you met David Pecker before joining a Trump organization briefly, correct? Yes. And so you had a sense of who he was, right? Uh-huh. And you mentioned overhearing some telephone calls between President Trump and Mr. Pecker. Do you remember that? Yes. And these things happened a long time ago, right? Yes, a very long time ago. And you explained as best as you could your memory of those calls, right? Yes. And what I want to understand is it wasn't uncommon for President Trump to be speaking to journalists during the campaign, right? No. And so those two calls didn't stick out to you as being out of the ordinary, correct? No. President Trump gives a lot of feedback, right? He does. He likes to call and praise people for stories, even if they're not about him, just if he thought it was a good story. He likes to call and say he didn't think it was a good story. He does a really nice job of maintaining relationships and, always being willing to engage with the media, even if he doesn't always think that the treatment he gets is fair. He still is willing to engage. So, yeah, he spoke often with publishers, journalists, editors. And he spoke to those types of folks about stories that he liked, right? Yes. And ones that he didn't like. Yes. And in your experience, it's not uncommon for a campaign to try and work with the media to promote their campaign theme. No, I wouldn't have a job if that wasn't a regular practice. Right. It's regular practice, and there's nothing wrong with that, is there? No. And campaigns try to do social media to amplify some of those themes that are in their themes, right? Yes. The ones they like, right? Yes. And sometimes campaigns amplify narratives that are positive for their candidate, correct? Yes. And vice versa. Sometimes a campaign amplifies the negative with respect to the opponent. Yes. Sometimes the campaign spends dollars to do that from social media, right? These are all normal, commonplace ways of the campaigns to operate, right? I've only been on one campaign, but it was a great one, and that is my understanding.
And it's consistent, that experience is consistent with the consulting work you are doing right now, right?
I don't have a ton of political clients, but I understand what you're trying to say. It's just not something I'm practicing right now.
Well, let me ask it in a different way. Public figures think about the issues in the same way, right?
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about what life was like day to day on the campaign trail, okay? It sounded like long days, right?
Yes.
I think that you said you were traveling almost every day.
Yes.
Did you travel with a laptop?
I did. Yes.
And also your cell phone?
Yes.
And is it fair to say that you were sending hundreds, if not thousands, of messages each day in this period, 2015 to 2016, because of how hectic things were?
Yes.
And so we've looked at 10-ish of your emails over a 2-year period working on the campaign, right?
Yes.
There were many other issues that came up, correct?
Yes.
And it was common in this period, especially in 2016, as you go towards the election, for there to be an outreach from the press about potentially negative stories relating to your candidate, President Trump, right?
Yes.
And obviously, you talked today about a couple of those stories, right?
Yes.
But this was near constant, correct?
Yes.
And the two that we've focused on so far are Access Hollywood tape, right? And then the Wall Street Journal articles on Miss McDougal and Miss Clifford, right?
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about what that Access Hollywood tape came out. I think you said before you first got wind of it, it's sort of a Friday night when you were at Trump Tower during the debate prep.
It was Friday afternoon, 1:30.
Thank you. And people were there getting ready for the debate that weekend, right?
Yes.
It was sort of your normal goal to report on developments like that, right?
Yes.
And people were together because of the debate prep, right?
That's right.
And the president was there for the debate prep, right?
Yes.
And so there was an in-person meeting to discuss how to react to this news article, right?
That's right.
The concept of the gathering the key campaign staff and the president to talk about the issue that could impact the campaign, that was standard for the way that you all were operating at the time, right?
I mean, most often when we were on the road, it was just whoever was with us.
Right.
It was unusual to be at Trump Tower.
And what was unusual about it was that for once, out of all of the time, you're actually in New York, not on the road. People had gathered for the debate prep, right?
Yes.
You recall, don't you, that there were some leaks at President Trump's tax information prior to this?
I think just before the first debate.
And in connection with that, the campaign staff gathered to talk about how to respond with the president, right? Either physically or on the phone.
That's my recollection. Yes.
And that Friday night into Saturday morning, people worked pretty late, right?
Yes.
And I think we looked at President Trump's statement that ended up being October 8th. It was after midnight on October 8th.
Yes, that's right.
And he stayed there late to put that together, correct?
He did.
You had a sense, didn't you, that this was causing him personal stress, right?
Yes. Yes, he was worried about how this would be viewed at home.
And you said a little bit ago you got a chance to meet President Trump's wife during your work at Trump Organization and also on the campaign.
Yes.
What about your observations of that relationship caused you to think that that night this was causing him stress about what would happen at home?
President Trump really values Mrs. Trump's opinion, and he doesn't weigh in all the time. She doesn't weigh in all the time, but when she does, it's really meaningful to him. And, he really, really respects what she has to say. So I think he was just concerned about what her perception of this would be. And yeah, I know that was weighing on him.
Weighing on him that night, right? And it continued to weigh on him as more allegations were made in the media, right?
Yes.
Now, I think you said he talked to Mr. Cohen the following day.
Yes.
And to be clear, Mr. Cohen wasn't in any of the meetings at Trump Tower, right?
No.
Wasn't even in the United States, correct?
No.
He was in London.
I think so.
And as best you can recall on that day,
on the day that happened, a long time ago, it seemed like the focus of your conversations that day were on concerns about a different tape, right? That's right. And I think we call it an alleged tape, right? Yes, alleged. Alleged because you later confirmed that it didn't exist. That's right. And that day you reached out to Mr. Cohen because you knew that he had a relationship with someone who might be able to find out more information about this alleged tape, right? Yes, that's right. The relationship that we're talking about is with a member of the media, correct? Yes. And it sounded like the Access Hollywood tape came up, but the focus of your conversations with Mr. Cohen that day were on this other issue. Yes, I think it would have been odd to talk and not acknowledge, the news cycle of the past 24 hours. That wasn't the purpose of the call or what we spoke about. I want to jump ahead a little bit to November 4th of 2016. Wall Street Journal article. I think you said that this was the first time you heard Karen McDougal's name. Yes, and I think you said this morning that it was the second time you remember hearing Stormy Daniels' name. That's right. Because you referenced the conversation that you had overheard on the plane, I think around November 2015. That's right. And I just need to clarify that conversation related to, it involved President Trump, right? He was on the plane. He was on the plane, yes. The discussion was about a relationship between, or interactions between, Stormy Daniels and Ben Roethlisberger, right? Yes, that's right. Hold on, everybody. I saw a question here. Leading questions? Yes, absolutely. And that is allowable on cross-examination. Yes, that's right. You talked about when the article, the November 4th, 2016 article came out, that President Trump asked that the newspapers not be brought to the residence that day. Yes. And that was another indication, wasn't it, that this was hitting home in a very real way. Yes. That there were parts of this that were very, very personal to him, right? Absolutely. I don't think he wanted anyone in his family to be hurt or embarrassed by anything that was happening on the campaign. He wanted them to be proud of him. The last thing I want to do is talk a little bit about your time at the White House. You described some conversations with President Trump that I think you said happened in 2018, right? Yes. And you were there that day. You were working, right? Yes. In your official capacity, right? Yes. And he was there trying to be the president of the United States, right? Yes. And that office that you described, the Oval Office and the area around it, that was very hectic space in 2017, right? Yes. And it sounds like for a period of time when you had that job, you could see from where you were sitting, the Resolute desk, yes. That's where the president sat, yes. When he was acting as president, right? That's right. So you got a sense of how chaotic that environment was day to day, right? That particular area wasn't necessarily chaotic in a bad way. I just want to clarify it was very busy. There was a lot going on. There were certainly parts of the experience that were chaotic, but he was constantly moving. People were working very hard to make it not chaotic and keep it orderly. Yes. But the fact is, there were many meetings and a lot of things going on, right? Yes. And from where you sat, you could see that the president was frequently multitasking, right? Yes. And people were interrupting what he was doing, right? Yes. Different priorities would get called out to his attention and he would pivot. That's right. And in that time frame in 2017, while you were focused on your job at the White House, you didn't have anything to do with the business records for the Trump Organization, 200 plus miles away from New York City, did you? No, I have nothing further. Anything else? 1 minute to confer, Your Honor. Sure, attorneys conferring. Nothing further. Thank you, Ms. Hicks. You can step down. Witness is excused. So there we go, everybody. We made it. I did have to check my battery. I had concerns for a moment. We made it. Oh. All right. So there we have it then. That is the full testimony, the direct and cross of Miss Hope Hicks. Here. It was, I know, it was a bit painful.
But you can see how methodical that cross-examination was. I thought he did a great job on cross-examination from a professional point of view. I thought he did great. Each point that seemed to be damaging, he kind of set up and knocked back down again, which was fine. Do you think they achieved anything in particular with the cross? I don't think they achieved anything other than acknowledging kind of the parts that were harmful. And that's one of the great things about sitting on the sidelines and watching, is that we can see, like, what did defense ask about? Because what were they concerned about? And that's what they wanted to come in and clean up on cross. So, they were concerned about the relationship with Melania. They were wanting to say, well, there's lots of emails that go back and forth. There's nothing really special about this email. There's lots of conversations that happen. It gets pretty hectic. Things happen. So I think they really wanted to emphasize that. Well done. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Why did she cry? Great question. It is so stressful, everyone. It is so stressful to testify and to be in this situation. And, I don't know that much of backstory here, but, it sounds like Ms. Hicks had been working for Mr. Trump for a long period of time in the Trump organization. And, I don't necessarily think she was, I said something really bad. No, I think what happened was she had just used up all she had on direct. And then it was a natural break. We had a break before cross, a brief break for a moment before cross came up. And then it was more like she felt that defense counsel would be friendly. And so she was able to relax for a moment. And I think her stress response was to cry. Yeah, I think she just, honestly, she was much more relaxed on cross than she was during direct. So in direct, she had to be very careful. She had a lot of those kinds of things. But then on cross, it was just, he was leading her through the questions, which is what you do on cross. So for her, all she had to do is say yes or no, yes or no. And, as soon as it switched, she saw him as a friendly. And so, let her guard down. And I think she was just overwhelmed with the moment. He was concerned how people perceive him. Oh, I think so. Sure. I think so. Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot going on in this case. There's a lot of information that we're finding out here about how Mr. Trump really liked to have all the information that he possibly could have about every single thing going on in his world. But we all know you can't. Something's gonna slip. Something's gonna fall. And it looks like this situation with Stormy Daniels is what fell, because there were so many things going on, and his usual technique of just kind of sliding by wasn't gonna work here. Thank you for reading. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, micromanager. I think that's a good way to describe it. Right. And again, I think, it sounds like he's kind of cheap and, didn't want to pay the situation. And so Cohen was like, excited puppy to be able to come in here and take care of business. But then, and then Trump came in and was like, great, take care of it. But I want to do it in a way that's, I got other stuff going on. So Wesselberg also got involved, and I think it just turned into this horrible mess. Yeah, of course it's about Trump, and of course it is. Of course he wanted Daniels paid, but didn't want to pay him himself, and didn't want to pay in a way that could have somehow be traced back to him. But then that means that you've got to screw up all the documents. And you can't, if you just are straightforward with what you're using your money for, that's a little different situation than trying to hide all of this and go through shell corporations and stuff. Nothing with a shell corporation is not going to come back and hurt you later. If the shell corporation's involved in what you're talking about, you're going to be in some trouble. Oh my gosh, so many trials it shows. Yes. Yeah, it just seems like he's clearly very self-aware, self-oriented, which I think is very classic for extremely rich people, or people who are born into rich families. Of course, you're very self involved with that. Well, I don't know. Maybe that's too broad of a statement. Why is nothing happening in the Georgia case? Are they waiting on appeal? That's part of it. That's part of it. We've got interlocutory appeals right now that are in the process of being taken care of. Now, again, Judge McAfee has said he's not going to pause the trial. He's not going to pause what needs to be done during these interlocutory appeals. But the deadlines and things that are going on right now are just spaced out naturally. And I think it's because they've got a lot of other stuff going on in Georgia. They just really have a lot going on down there. So I don't think there's an intentional shift. I think it is literally you look and see how busy their docket is. And his case is just one of many. And a lot of them are, a lot of the cases in Georgia kind of pause until it's like a hurry up and wait situation because there's such a huge queue to get going. Yes, Judge Cannon did. Yes. Oh, I don't know about indefinitely. I'm not sure where I've seen indefinitely come from. When are you doing Stormy's testimony? Great question, Michael. I will wait. The transcripts should be out tomorrow, but that usually only gives me about an hour before the live. So it's looking, I will most likely be doing hers. I don't know. It's looking like Thursday, but tomorrow morning I will post in the morning and give a better idea. PBS said it. Okay. Because she didn't set a date. Okay, so yeah, I think this indefinite, let's take a minute here. Let's take a minute and talk about Florida. This anytime you hear the word indefinite is like, that's like a buzzword, just like saying President Trump. It just riles up everybody. You can't say indefinite, PBS. Come on, get it together, PBS. We can't say indefinitely suspended. No, that just gets everybody all crazy worried. No. Here's the order, everyone. And what happened is that she set out how she wants to do the next couple of months in these hearings. She has vacated the May trial date and not set a trial date. Now, that just means that she wants to reassess when July 22nd comes for this last hearing. And at that point, she'll reassess and figure out when the date will be that she wants to have. So, no, there's no trial date set, which is weird. It's weird to not have a trial date set. It's odd. It's unusual. But I would not use the term indefinitely. I don't think that's a good term to use. No, don't use that term. She's just not set a trial date until she wants to reassess. And that really kind of goes with what she's been saying all along. She's saying, look, we've got stuff that we want to take care of, and I've done all this hard work, and I just want to. And I think it's interesting too, she's got a whole footnote in here of all this hard work she's done. It's like, you're doing hard work because it's your job. You're doing your job, ma'am. But she's just said, hey, the speedy trial date has been told. So that late July date we spoke about before with that speedy trial issue is off of the table. And then she's going to wait until later on to set the trial date. Now, the fact that she's not confirmed a trial date is odd. It's very odd, and I'm not sure whether or not the rules are really allowing for that. Oh, good night, Deb. Yes, good night, Deborah. You said some kind of yeah. I mean, I agree. This is kind of weird. It's weird to have a case of this magnitude without a trial date. It's weird. Straight up, it's weird, everybody. Is it enough to have her removed from the case? I don't see how that would be, but it's weird. It's weird. So the other thing too, everyone, and I set this out so we would have a better visual, is she's booking it. She's set these hearings out. She set these responses out pretty much every single week. So we've got a hearing tomorrow. Grand jury matters. Those have to be taken into consideration. We've got a week off here in May, which is, whatever. But then we have a resolution of pending seal requests. We have a non-evidentiary hearing for both NADA as well as all of the defendants on two major issues set for the 22nd. The following week, we have a discovery status report that's due. Then we've got a week off here, that first week again. Next, we've got a defendant's Rule 16 expert disclosures is due, and then we've got a week to respond. SIPA 5, Section 5, and notice to defendants is due the following week, along with another non-evidentiary hearing on those motions to dismiss. So those are set as well. So those are two huge pieces set out. And then we've got the 4th of July week here that's blank. After that, special counsel supplemental expert disclosures are due, and then we've got SIPA section 6A due for the state and then or for the government, and then reciprocal discovery due July 10th. So she's not set a trial date, but it's weird, which I think is weird that she's not set that. And by the way, we do also have the 19th and the 22nd, but my time got crunched a little bit. But we also have on the 19th combined speedy trial report, and then the 22nd is a status conference. And it's at the status conference that we'll see the new date set if she doesn't kind of get told like, hey, you need to set a trial date. So this July 22nd date is very similar to what we had earlier when she set that assessed that May situation. So I'm not trying to support not having a trial date. I'm not for that. I'm against not having a trial date. All right, so let's just be clear on that. But also, when you're looking at it, it's not like everything has just been put 3 months down the road and like nothing's going to happen for 3 more months. It's looking like we're booking it. She's definitely set everything up. And in fact, this schedule looks to be moving quicker than the previous schedule was if she keeps to it. So I would say there's good and bad with what's happened. There's good in how quick she's actually set these matters out to be taken care of, which means everything's briefed, everything, we just need to go in, take care of our hearings, get our filings done. On the other hand, we don't have a trial date, and that's weird. Needs to be held accountable. I know. We've all got our questions about Judge Cannon. We've all got our uncomfortable feelings. Won't that push the trial after the election? No way to know. If she's got a pretrial conference, so let's just set this out here. If we have a status conference here in July, which is what is set for the 22nd, and then we've got, let me just double check. Yeah, then we've got a supplemental SIPA hearing also that same day. So we've got one more SIPA here. It's possible she could say, fine, we're 6 weeks out. Let's do this. We've got set trial for 6 weeks down the road. It's very possible. She has made sure to note in her order that we have speedy tolling only through... They've only agreed to August 12th and September 9th. So really it's August 12th. So again, everyone, I remind you, we have our speedy trial rules that come due August 12th. So no matter what, we have to have a date set in order to make that speedy trial date assessment at that point. So that's the next date. So she's kind of kicked it down the road, but also scheduled a whole bunch of stuff to take care of it. So the speedy trial date that was late, we talked about this before, right? We had a late July speedy trial date, is now been moved just a few weeks down the road down to August. And having trial date impede his right of speedy trial. No, great question, Melanie. No, and that's specifically cited in her order. She cited where defendants in their filings set out what waivers they had on speedy trial. But we have to remember too, the government also has a bit of a speedy trial element as well, although good luck playing it out in Florida. It'll have better luck in DC. But because of how it's been set out in these 4 filings by the defendants, that's how she can kick it a few more weeks down the road. And again, the latest was September 9th because defendants split the dates that they were willing to go for trial. So technically she's only moved them a few weeks further. Could she just go through the motions, just appear to be moving? I don't think so at this point. I think this would be difficult to just do kind of an empty shell hearings because these are some pretty significant things going on here. We've got motions to dismiss being fought over. We have grand jury matters being fought over tomorrow. Discovery issues, because we still have motions in discovery that are kind of up in the air, motion to compel. So I don't think so. I think this is a legitimate schedule. I don't think she maybe realizes how incredibly important it is to set a trial date, lady. But maybe on the other hand, she felt like she truly couldn't set it. Like she truly did not know how things were going to go in this unprecedented kind of case. And I think that that's going to get her into trouble. Yeah, I think she's going to get in trouble. Does the new judge have a better... I don't know. That's a great question, Terry, and I just don't know. Are any of the trials allowed video coverage? So, great question. So far right now, the only trial that I know of that's going to have coverage is going to be Georgia. Yeah. Changes will come down from charges from New Jersey. It's possible. It's possible. We've got charges in Arizona. We're still kind of waiting on a couple more states for the fake elector scheme. And with the documents case out of New Jersey, sure, but we've got a huge statute of limitations on the New Jersey situation, so I don't see how Jack would be in a big rush. I think 2 cases is plenty for him at the moment. Yep, Georgia. Yep. For sure. Yeah. So I don't think Jack is going to want to rush or push it at the moment. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Was she waiting for details of the New York case before setting a trial date? No. In my opinion, everyone, I believe Judge Cannon is completely focused on herself. I do not think she is really focusing on any other cases, on any other situation. She is totally focused completely on her role in this case. And it has completely to do with how she prefers to have her hearings, everything briefed, when she has time for things, how she wants to set it out. So I don't think it has anything to do with the other case. Great question, though. Perfect nails, a new color. Oh, well, they're not. These are not real nails, so that makes it easier. Delaying the case. I don't think so at this point. I really don't. I think she has her own plan in her head of what she wants to do with this case. And, if that happens to fall into a delay pattern, then so be it. But this is the feeling that I'm getting from this situation, from her not setting a trial date. She could set a trial date for January 1st of 2025. Why didn't she set it? Why didn't she set a trial date? And because she wants to have total and complete control over what's going on, how she's feeling about it, how things are going with her case, and then make the assessment at that point. I don't think she's trying to drag it out. I think she is truly trying to be like, what's going to work best in this situation for me? And that's why we don't have a trial date. Because if she wanted to push it down the road, she could have, but she didn't. Have you heard about another? I have not, Shell. I'm not. You'll have to narrow down the defendant. There's a lot of defendants out there. So, another former employee? Really? Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness gracious. She might be overwhelmed. Oh, and she is overwhelmed. I think she's very overwhelmed, and she says it in her order. She very clearly sets out all of the hard work she's been doing, which I'm just like, yeah, it's your job, ma'am. That's your job. So I think she is overwhelmed, but I think she's trying to get control of it. She's trying to get control of the runaway horses by saying, you know what, we're going to have, this is when we're going to have our hearings. This is when our stuff is due from this moment on. And I will decide at a later point when I want to have a trial. So I think she's very, so much has been going on. I agree. Do we hear everything else? Breaking the gag today. Oh, I don't know anything about that. No, indefinite. No. So, again, we can use technically if you want to use the dictionary term of indefinite, but it's a trigger word. Like we don't need to use trigger words here. No, she is waiting to reassess to set the trial date after July 22nd. All right, that's what she's doing, which I think is actually the speedy date that we had originally. So she's really only kicking it down the road a few weeks. She's reassessing at that point. It's not indefinite. It just means she wants to reassess in late July after she's had all these hearings, all these motions that have been filed, all these hearings, all this stuff. She wants to take care of it. When it's all done, she will set the hearing at that time, or she'll set the trial date at that time. Do I agree with her choice? No, I think she should have set it, but I'm also not the judge. So what about Hall versus Oates? Yeah, it's a great question, actually. I thought they would have settled at this point, but I think they've got some kind of a classified settlement pieces of that. But, okay, thank you. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. New case. Okay, I'll take a look. Thank you for being, oh, absolutely. I mean, oh my gosh. Yeah, well, and I had heard that too. I'd heard some people saying, oh, indefinite. I'm like, oh my goodness gracious. No, don't use the I word. Do not use the I word. No, no, no. No, it's just she's going to wait. Do I agree? No, but it's also fine, and it doesn't mean that it's, forever. Oh my goodness. Oh, PBS, seriously, do better. Yes, so we'll see. I should I do a post about that, everyone? Would that make people feel better? I'm wondering if I should just do a post. I need to do a live going through this. I would like to read through all of this, and I'll do that within the next day or two. So watch for that for sure. But I should probably put a post up. Yes, 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 please. Okay, I'll put a post up. It's not indefinite. It's just, well, I mean, technically, I don't know. I think sometimes language can really language is very powerful. So CNN, oh my goodness. All right. Yes, so I will definitely I will add some to it. With that, I will put something together to kind of calm the waters with that. But with that, everybody, I will go ahead and sign off for tonight. They do sensationalize. Well, I mean, they may not realize how much of a trigger that word is, or maybe they do, and, that's what they want to do. But I will go ahead and sign off for tonight, everyone. I will post tomorrow on when the next live will be. I will test and see how my voice is to see if I go live tomorrow or not. I will be back for sure on Thursday, but I'm hoping to be back again tomorrow. I'll let you know. I'll put a post up. So thank you all for joining me. Thank you, moderators, for your very, very hard work, as always. And I wish everyone a very, very good night. And I will see you all very, very soon. Bye, everyone.